company puts you on a performance improvement plan or PIP, your whole life shatters, but you have to understand you're in a really bad place. Now, I've seen a lot of advice out there on PIPs, a lot of it bad, some of it good. So, having climbed the corporate ranks to senior management, I'll do my best to tell you what I've actually seen as an insider and call out what's useful. We'll go through the latest news on PIPs, what others are saying, and what you can do about them to best position yourself. The trends aren't good. Let's go through this recent article in the Wall Street Journal that was based on research data from a HR firm called HR Acuity. The most hated way of firing someone is more popular than ever. It's the age of the PIP. Let's take a look and see what this says. A performance improvement plan is usually a list of tough to achieve goals to be completed within 30 to 90 days. Can't shape up? You're out. Well, that sounds about right to me. One of the things I wanted to take a look at here, it says the percentage of workers who are subject to performance actions, including PIPs, is on the rise. So in 2020, 33.4 people for every 1,000 workers had performance issues, or at least documented performance issues from HR firm HR Acuity. And in 2023, 43.6 workers out of every 1,000 were involved in formal performance issues. So that's interesting because we have an increasing jump in people that are put on performance improvement plans. And this is consistent with what I see, what I've heard, especially with tech firms and other areas that are trying to reduce their workforce. But what exactly is the data that they're using? So let's look at the data that HR Acuity has. You can see here that the data was collected from 253 organizations. So not a ton of organizations, but a reasonable amount. And it's got a distribution from Fortune 100 to Global 500 and companies of a variety of sizes, industries, and revenue. It's concentrated in technology, though, and not really very small companies in general. It's not weighted to small companies. The article says that PIPs are intended to bring consistency and fairness in the way employees are judged, and the goal is to lay out a path to improve performance. And sometimes it works. We'll talk about that a bit later when I go through my thoughts and what you can do. But it's interesting that workers and even managers say its primary goal is to provide legal cover from employment lawsuits or to cut costs without announcing layoffs. And there's a lot of truth to this. It's something that many people may not want to hear. It's something that managers and executives may not want to say out loud. And I'll talk about this a bit later as well. So, a PIP is an oxymoron, says a human resources executive who worked at AIG. It's a pretty big financial company. And basically, what she's saying is that it's window dressing and it's a cover up. They don't lead to improving performance. It's basically an excuse to walk out the door. And it's basically saying, like, hey, we gave you an opportunity and you didn't perform. And so now, see you later. Another chief executive at a software company, it's just a legal thing to make it so that we warned you that you get fired.
Corporate tip from an HR girl. If you're ever put on a performance improvement plan at work, or as we like to call it, a PIP, make sure that you request a copy of that plan. And we're going to take it a step further. After you are given that PIP, make sure you are documenting everything moving forward. When you're having a meeting about this PIP, HR is usually going to be sitting in on this meeting. So ask as many questions as you need to ask to understand what's going on.
When your company puts you on a performance improvement plan or a PIP, you have to understand that the dominoes are already starting to fall. Yes, it is possible that you could pull out of it, impress everyone with your great performance, and do fine. But the truth of the matter is, there was already a conversation about you behind closed doors. When they made this PIP, it was to start a paper trail to get rid of you. They're really not necessarily hoping or even expecting that you're going to improve. Sometimes the PIP is petty and there's nothing to improve. They just don't like you, but they want to protect themselves. So yes, it's possible that the PIP is truly a manager trying to help you improve your performance, but most of the time, it's just the warning shot, and your best response is to start looking for other jobs. Truth bomb of the day.
If this ever happens to you and you get put on a PIP by your manager, Don't put any of your effort towards your job anymore. Go all in on job search and finding a new role because you are never going to get out of that PIP. Performance improvement plan is pretty much them quiet firing you. They don't have enough to fire you immediately, so they're doing things necessary to make you feel bad. Most people want to do is quit on the spot, but don't do that. Look for a new job, get a new job, and then quit. Good luck.
Okay, so I picked views from different people for a broad perspective. I'll summarize what I agree with. Remember, though, that every situation is different, but this is what I'd advise for most people. I'll put it in context of three broad strategies that you can use. And remember, document everything. Put everything in writing. And even if HR or your manager says to just give them a call to talk about it, summarize everything that was said in an email and send it to them afterwards. If you're eventually fired, having paperwork to back up your side of the story may help increase your severance package. Also, whichever path you choose, start a job search and network immediately. You should view your PIP timeframe as a paid interview period. Now, the first strategy is simply to find a new job and leave the company as soon as possible. This is what I'd suggest for most people. It takes a lot of uncertainty and stress off your mind. The second strategy is to delay. You may be able to take FMLA or Family and Medical Leave Act for mental health, which provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave. But you'll probably need medical certification for this. You should probably consult experts if you go this route. This can buy you some time if you need it. The third strategy is to just play it out and see what happens. If the mental and financial issues aren't a problem, you may be able to save yourself if you perform well enough, though the chance of this is small. And even if you don't, you may be able to negotiate severance pay, although it's not guaranteed. I think it's useful to have a mental framework to put things in perspective. Sometimes we blame ourselves for setbacks, and sometimes we blame others. I'll share the framework I use. If you don't meet job expectations, it's not just you, so don't feel too bad. Results are a combination of both you and your environment. Both need to fit together tightly like a puzzle for best results. With bad results, it's actually hard to say whether you could have done better given your environment. The thing is, changing the company environment is almost impossible unless you're a leader at the very highest levels. So, like it or not, almost always it's the employee that gets blamed and asked to change to perform better. Unlike what most people believe, if you watch my previous video, you know that your manager is trained to not prioritize you. Check the pop up for that video if you haven't watched it. So, to do well at a company, you need to plug into the company environment well. When you're put on a PIP, the trust between you and your manager is broken. Trust is the currency of healthy corporate relationships. That's why it's usually better to leave a company when trust is broken, because while it takes a long time to build trust, it only takes a moment to destroy it. I've never put anyone on a PIP, but I've also never seen a case where someone who was on a PIP repaired trust with their manager. Even if you do survive a PIP, you'll likely be viewed as damaged goods and your record will be tarnished. Management will be wary of someone they think might have a grudge against them, so you likely won't get the opportunities needed for promotion. That might be okay if career advancement is not your goal, just be aware of it. Now, we're talking about relationships, identity, and trust. All of these have an impact on your mental health. Make sure you're taking care of your mental health, especially if you're on a PIP. I made a video on this previously, which should pop up at the top if you want to take a look at it. But why do PIPs really happen? There are three main reasons I've seen. Number one, performance. It's possible you're actually not meeting performance requirements of the job, so try to do some introspection and be honest about whether the job was a stretch for you. Try to get some outside advice if you can, with a focus on what you can do better next time. But some companies like Amazon are notorious for having a PIP culture. They rank their employees and then force managers to use PIPs and other methods to get rid of the bottom 10% of employees. So, if enough other employees outperform you, you may get PIPed even if you would otherwise meet job requirements. Number two, politics. Like it or not, the corporate game is also a political one. If you're perceived as a troublemaker or disloyal to your manager or someone higher up, they may just want to get rid of you as fast as possible. Toxic corporate cultures do exist. They call it the corporate jungle because it can be survival of the ruthless. Number three is corporate restructuring. Sometimes organizational chaos with management changes may mean that your job expectations changed without anyone telling you about it. To avoid the situation, directly ask for feedback and document goals, especially when these shifts happen. Can you know whether you'll be on a PIP? Here are some early warning signs you may notice. Number one, your manager is unusually curt and formal. Number two, leadership is less interested in meeting with you and coaching you. Number three, your typical tasks are assigned to another individual. And number four, you're excluded from any discussions. If you see some or all of these signs, be very careful. So, how does a PIP go down? Well, first, there's an initial meeting. You're given an official notice that you are being placed on a PIP. Your manager outlines specific performance issues, expectations, and goals. The next steps are regular check ins. During the PIP, there are usually weekly or bi weekly check ins between you and your manager to discuss progress and address challenges. These meetings serve as documented evidence of support and tracking progress. And then there's a final review. At the end of the PIP, if performance has improved to the level expected, you may be taken off the PIP and allowed to continue in your role. If not, the next steps often involve termination or suggesting a voluntary resignation. It can be difficult, but my advice is to use the PIP as a learning opportunity. Use it to emerge better and stronger than you were before. I've never been put on a PIP, but once after a layoff, I met with an executive before I left and just simply asked for their advice on anything I should think about doing better. I didn't blame anyone and didn't even mention the layoff. I just said I was genuinely interested in his executive level perspective. The exec told me to try to make an impact in a new situation very quickly. And you typically need to do this in very senior levels. I think that was code for how I could have potentially saved myself. And it was good advice, but the exec would never have said that otherwise. Even though it is a corporate jungle, most people are willing to help you if they feel that they're not risking anything for themselves in the process. Managers and executives are human too, and you'll be surprised at what can happen if you approach them the right way. So, talk to as many people as possible and try to tease out what you could have done differently or what could be different in the environment for next time so you can avoid the situation in future. And when you're interviewing for your next job, what should you tell them? Don't volunteer to anyone that you were put on a PIP. During interviews, simply give them positive reasons for why you want to work at their company. The narrative should be about why you're running to their company, not why you're running away from your old one. If you need more personalized advice, I'm giving away a free 30-minute consultation, which I normally charge $250 for. Simply comment free coaching session please below, and I'll pick a random winner. But that's all we have time for today. For more tips that I can't share here, feel free to subscribe to my newsletter in the description. And if you found this video valuable, please like and subscribe. Until next time, stay savvy, my friends.